Thanks for joining today's snapshot for Tuesday, June 30th. The people of Dr. Martin Luther Church have been very gracious about accepting our move to the outdoor service after we planned to be indoors. And the service went well on Sunday, and we'll have another service outdoors this Sunday on July 5th at 10 o'clock, as well as the online services. No matter if you're a member of Dr. Martin Luther or not, you may be interested to know that yesterday was the feast day for Saints Peter and Paul. They're combined together on June 29th. It was one of the earliest feast days in the church. As early as 258, they began observing it in the early church, I think in part because Peter was the first bishop of Rome, the first pope. Other popes descended from him. And it's considered a holy day of obligation. You must attend Mass. It's called a solemnity in the Roman Catholic Church. Now, these two great leaders of the New Testament, Peter and Paul, each have their own day. There's a day in January for the confession of Peter, where it honors the fact that Peter said to Jesus, "You are the Christ," when Jesus says, "But who do you say that I am?" And then the conversion of St. Paul is also observed in January when we honor Paul's conversion on his road to Damascus. They were alike in being great leaders, but different in their backgrounds. Peter, as you know, was a fisherman on the Sea of Galilee, common man, Galilean, as I said, but he became one of the leaders of the early church, as we read in the book of Acts. We know how bold he was in proclaiming the message of the lordship of Jesus. And in fact, many of his sermons take up a lot of the book of Acts. Paul, of course, was the missionary to the Gentiles. And unlike Peter, he was well educated. He was a Pharisee, a Roman citizen, actually, and very sophisticated and cosmopolitan, which made it easier to travel on all those missionary journeys we read about in the book of Acts. Now, what ties them together is that they were both martyred in Rome, probably in the year 64, by the Emperor Nero, who was so horrible and to Christians. He tortured them and murdered them at an unbelievable rate. We know him as the fiddler when Rome burned, but he was known more to Christians as the worst possible Caesar. Well, if the only thing I don't like about the festival of Saints Peter and Paul, this lesser festival in the church, don't know why it's considered a lesser festival, except that it doesn't predominate, is that we celebrate these men, but we don't have enough festivals to celebrate women. And if I could redo the Bible, how pretentious is that? If there's one thing I could change in the Bible, one thing in the New Testament, I wish, one, that Jesus had called one of the women to be one of the disciples so that they would be listed among the 12. We know the women were the first at the tomb. The Samaritan woman confessed that this is the Christ that she had encountered at the well, but no women are listed among the 12. And if they were, think how different our church would be. We would not be celebrating 50 years of ordained ministry in the ELCA. We would not know a time when we did not have women, and how much richer our church would be if that were the case. The same way in the Roman Catholic Church. John Paul II, 25 plus years ago, said women could not be ordained because they didn't have the physical anatomy of the disciples. It's absurd. And think how the church has suffered from being the men-only club in the Roman Catholic Church. So as you give thanks for Peter and Paul, give thanks also for at least 50 years of women that we've had in the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church. Let's close with a discipleship hymn. Let us ever walk with Jesus, follow his example pure, through a world that would deceive us, and to sin our spirits lure. Onward in his footsteps treading, travelers here, our home above, full of faith and hope and love, let us do our Savior's bidding. Faithful Lord, with me abide, I shall follow where you guide. God bless you today.